This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode, I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 345 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. This one's titled Different Ways to Be a Thoughtful Traveller, and it's a collaboration between the podcast Travel Tales from Beyond the Brochure and the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Before we start, I'd like to pay my respects to the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, where I'm recording this podcast today in an early morning, Friday morning with beautiful bird call outside. So this episode is a very frank conversation with my long-term friend and fellow podcaster, the Barefoot Backpacker. They run the Travel Tales from Beyond the Brochure podcast, and I have known the Barefoot Backpacker via social media and our travel blogs from before either of us were podcasters, I think. Believe we met on Twitter, and we have met up once here in my home country and once in theirs when I was in Manchester last year. We often chat online, and we found we were quite often having these kind of robust discussions about our different travel styles. But it comes down to the idea, I think, that we are both thoughtful travellers, but you can be thoughtful in different ways, which is totally okay. And we decided to make a podcast episode about it. Now, to frame it so that we didn't just prattle on for hours, which I think we both feared we could, we picked a Buzzfeed quiz to answer together. Now, it's a kind of a fairly simplified quiz called Are You a Traveller, a Vacationer, or Somewhere in Between? But the questions gave us a chance to discuss quite a few of these thoughtful travel topics that we have discussed between us and had differences about in the past. I must confess we actually still did prattle on for hours. My recording time was 1 hour 45, but I have edited this to hopefully distill the most important thoughts. Yes, significantly down from 145. I am actually going to publish the full conversation at some stage soon in my Substack feed, because I did have to cut lots of fun and lots of interesting chats. But I think this shortened version demonstrates that there are many ways of being a thoughtful traveller.
The first question, according to me, is why do you travel? And the options are, I work really hard and therefore taking a break is important to me. I want to see more and more of the world however possible, or equal parts relaxation and adventure.
Right. I think we might agree on this one.
I don't know, what do you go for?
Well, I think I want to see more of the world, more and more of the world, however possible. I mean, I'm not sure about the however possible. That seems a bit reckless, but I want to see more. I want to learn more. I want to meet more interesting people.
I am the same, but for different reasons, I guess. I mean, I've spoken about it before on my own podcast. The reason why I travel is because I find the world really interesting and always have. So when I was a kid, I used to basically devour maps and just look at, this is, Oceania. And I'm thinking, I'd never go to Oceania, but this is really interesting. I was like 7 at the time. So I've always had that kind of curiosity about the world. I've always had that feeling that the world is a really interesting place, and it's all so very big. And when you've got it in front of you on a map, it's also accessible. So you're thinking, people live there. And if people live there, I can go there. And it's going to be different to where I live. But how different? Is it going to be completely alien, or is it going to be strangely familiar? I don't know till I get there.
You make me reflect. So I got to travel pretty young. I was 9 or 8 actually, when I was very, very lucky to be able to travel to Europe. And that was then my first experience of being in places where they spoke other languages and, had different cultures and customs. My parents hadn't traveled much, but my dad, or really at all. But my dad had lived in Papua New Guinea for a couple of years working for the bank, as you do. So he'd always told us stories about his experiences there, which were really unusual compared to life in Australia. So I think that, grew up knowing that, yeah, there are places that are completely different. And like you, they fascinate me. So show me more.
To be fair, Papua New Guinea is quite different from Australia.
Yes.
I mean, we don't really have anything close by that's that different. I mean, obviously, the first country I ever went to outside of the UK was Denmark, which is fairly benign. I just turned 11. The second country I went to was France because I was on a school trip on my second year of secondary school, so I was 12. France and Denmark are not that different because, I mean, obviously the language is different. There's some difference in culture, but they're so close by to Britain. It's like people will go there. People go there all the time, and it's not that different. And then Papua New Guinea is not like France or Denmark.
It is quite different, yes. That's true. Those stories that my dad told definitely got me fascinated. But, as a kid, you don't think about that as like, to me, it sounded normal that there would be places that are that different, and therefore, of course, they're interesting. Okay, so back on Buzzfeed, I'm going to pick, I want to see more and more of the world, however possible.
So the next question is, how do you think about budgeting for your trip?
All right. I try to get as much as possible for what I can afford. I try to balance out luxury elements with more basic stuff so it evens out in the end. I spend whatever is necessary to have the trip I deserve. But then it says, and that could be very little or a lot. The honest truth is I don't think very hard about budgeting, which is probably terrible. But I know I'm going to go, and I figure the flight is usually the most expensive part. And if I've got that covered, well, and that's, usually the first thing I think about. And then after that, I don't stay in anything luxury, or I don't know. I just, I don't not do something, especially these days. I wouldn't not do something because it was expensive if it was something I really wanted to do, like an interesting experience. But then also the stuff I want to do doesn't tend to be expensive. So I don't really have a good answer. What about you?
I worry a lot about money, much to the chagrin of my general erstwhile travel partner who thinks I shouldn't worry at all about money. But I am mostly exactly the same. I will travel. I have a place in mind. I will go to that place and I will travel around to that place. The vast majority of places that I go to are fairly cheap.
That helps.
So I don't necessarily need to worry. All that generally matters for me with regards to accommodation is that there's a bed in it.
Yep.
My travel companion prefers slightly more luxurious senses in the sense that she will always go for a private bathroom. The thing about being in hotels is that I don't see the point of spending lots of money on a hotel with lots of facilities because I'm not there to use the facilities.
Exactly.
Like a hotel with a gym. I don't go to a gym at home. Why would I go to a gym on holiday?
Aspirational. No, I don't even like a gym.
I don't even go running on holiday.
Oh, don't you? Well, because also you're out like walking all day and stuff. So yeah, who needs to? The only thing in a hot country, and especially since I had a kid, then a swimming pool might persuade me to choose one place over another because it is nice in a hot country to be able to spend a bit of time in the pool, but not to like lie by the pool for hours on end or anything like that. That's not my thing. Just have a dip in the pool and maybe a cocktail.
The question is quite vague, and we've only talked really about accommodation, but there's also the question of travel, the actual traveling itself. And one of the things that I did mention on my Maldives budget is that obviously when you've got an archipelago full of lots of islands, there are a number of ways of getting between the islands, and most of them are quite expensive.
I mean, when you live in Perth, one of the most isolated cities in the world, as we like to say, always the flight wherever you're going is almost always the most expensive thing you're going to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, I once got a train out of Perth.
Going east?
Well, I wasn't going to go west, was I?
No, but it can go south.
That's true. I got a train to Adelaide.
At the moment, there's no budget version of that train.
I know. I was on a budget ticket. It's great. They had, what was it when I went, which was 2014? They had gold class, platinum class, and red class. One of those is not like the others.
Did you get only a seat, or did you get to lie down?
It reclined quite a way, but it was only a seat.
Yeah, and they've scrapped that.
Yes, I heard.
I'm going to pick for this answer. I mean, I don't like the use of the word deserve, but I'm going to use I spend whatever is necessary to have whatever trip I want, and that could be very little or a lot. I think I don't deserve travel. I think I'm very lucky to have travel. But
I am choosing the middle option because I'm a balancey person. I never saw the point of luxury travel in the sense. I mean, I know why people do it.
It makes me uncomfortable.
Yes.
What I really hate most is like luxury service.
Yeah.
Like I just find it very awkward to be taken good care of. I mean, I deserve that, but you know what I mean? I don't want someone to be serving me because I don't like that differentiation. And so, like, if you're in a luxury hotel, I don't know, like places where they have like your own personal butler or something, I can't think of anything worse than asking someone to do stuff for me. Like, well, no, thank you. So, you know, it's nice to have like, I love a good view. So I don't really, like, if the room's comfortable, I don't really care much about what else is in it. Great view, happy with that. But yeah, I just don't want to be served. That cannot cope. Don't like.
On an upcoming podcast I'm doing is on comfort zones. And I do actually talk about that briefly and about the fact that, you know, I am not the sort of person that would really go to the Ritz Hotel.
Yeah, no, not my thing. Okay, next question. I'll read this one. How do you normally choose where to go? So this is interesting. So the options are, I start with the vibe I want, e.g. jungle adventure or relaxing beach holiday, and then research countries. I get recommendations from friends and family. I Google beach holiday or city break and see what deals appeal to me most. I mean, I'm mostly none of the above, but I can kind of shoehorn my ideas into one. So how do you normally choose where you go?
I go, where have I never been? Look on a map and go, I've never been there. Can I get there? Can I get around? Is it possible? Is it logistically possible for me to do this? And then I go, it is logistically possible for me to do this. Let's do it. And it's also the limit of my planning.
I love that. I mean, I'm not much different. How do I normally choose? Often starts from like a person or an event or some random reason, really. It's often like an event like our friend's wedding in the UK. That's why I got to be, you know, in your region last year. Or same friends had moved to Hong Kong. I thought, I haven't been to Hong Kong for many, many decades and we've got a place to stay, so we'll go. And then I remember one time we went to a family wedding in Thailand. And I was like, well, you know, I've been to Thailand before, so what else can we do? And then I just saw an airfare that went to Denmark via Thailand, and like, well, I've, you know, long wanted to go to Denmark properly, so let's do that. You know, it's pretty random because I'm happy to go everywhere, really, anywhere and everywhere, and I just want to have like some random reason to go, and that sort of seems to work for me.
I will tend to choose places partly based on the weather.
I can understand that when you live in England.
But also it's more a case of, I'm not really fond of going to places in the wet season because why would I? I've been to quite a few countries because I remember them from my childhood. Not necessarily in a good way. I mean, obviously growing up in the 80s meant that, you know, when you grew up with lots of, the Cold War was a thing. And, you know, you tended to have minor conflicts and the dying days of imperialism and things like that. So when I was at university, for instance, one of the big student causes was East Timor.
That's over our way. How funny.
It very much is. But the fact that it was, I mean, this was like 93, 94, 95.
Yeah.
And it stayed with me so that when I started doing traveling properly, I said, I'll go to East Timor because I've heard about it. So why not? So when in 2014 I traveled the world for a year, I went to Timor-Leste because
that's so cool.
That's why. I'm not one of those people that, I mean, bucket lists are an interesting subject in and of themselves. I don't really have a bucket list, but when I do have things in my mind, there's a reason for it. And sometimes the reason is very oblique.
Yeah, I completely understand. I think that's the same way in similar to how I choose something. There's some reason, and it's not kind of a regular reason that people would use to decide where to travel, but it's a reason for me, and that's enough. In fact, I think a unique reason is even better. Okay, so on this question, I'm going to choose, it's not really right, but I'm going to go with the vibe one. I definitely do not Google beach holiday. I have never in my life Googled beach holiday. So you can track my search history for decades. A, not my thing. B, I live 3 kilometers from the beach.
Well, yes.
So it's not necessary on 2 counts. I'm going to go with the vibe because it's sort of, I pick by my vibe.
I'm all for going with the vibe.
This one I think we can speed through. What type of accommodation do you normally go for? A hostel or guest house so I can meet other travellers but not be close to touristy areas. A nice reliable hotel with good amenities and easy access to key places. A mix of both. I mean, for me it's a mix of both because it just all depends. There's lots of different reasons.
Yeah, it's a really weird question.
It is. What I don't like is a really stock standard, like international chain hotel. I sometimes still use them because they're in a convenient spot or like whatever. But most of the time I would prefer something that's has a bit more character to it. But like you said, at the end of the day, really, mostly I'm only sleeping there, so I don't really care that much. I just want there to be like no cockroaches.
Yeah. When I'm in the UK, I tend to stay in the Premier Inn travel chain because I know what they're like. They're comfortable. They're usually convenient and relatively affordable. When I'm abroad, it very much depends on where I am, but I will generally go for what is the cheapest accommodation I can find that is also convenient.
Like not miles and miles out of the way.
What I will also say is that it very much depends on my mood. I have no objection to couch surfing. I also, for the same reason, have no objection to Airbnb, because what I tend to stay in with Airbnb is rooms in someone else's house, just the way it should be.
Yes, that's how it was set up to be.
Otherwise, I like a good aesthetic guest house. But
yes,
generally, I just go with somewhere that's just cheap and convenient.
How long do you usually go away for is the next question.
So the options are 2 more weeks if I can, so I can see and do lots. Enough for a good break, but not too long, so I used up all of my vacation days. Or I usually choose the destination first and then choose the length depending on where I'm going. Well, some of us have jobs.
I have jobs. That's the problem. I have jobs. But what you mean is you have a proper job, so to speak.
I am not self-employed. I am paid by a organisation. I'm going to say organisation.
To work most days of the year.
To work most days of the year. Now, obviously, we get a lot of vacation days.
How many vacation days do you get?
We have 8 bank holidays. And I get, I believe, 4 weeks I can take any time. So technically, I get about 35 days holiday. The way I travel is that I'd rather go and see lots of places. And when lots of places are, well, some of it is South Asia, some of it is the Caribbean, some of it is Southeast Asia, some of it is Europe. You can't really do that in one trip.
No.
What I've tended to do is, go straight from work on a plane, have basically 16 days holiday and then come back and go straight back to work.
So you absolutely maximize that time and...
Yes, very much so. What that also means is that my trips are very hectic and always have been, and I go back to work to rest. There's a whole issue here about slow travel. I do it, and I also don't do it. I have the attention span of 3 dead badgers in a sack.
Poor badgers.
So I get bored if I spend more than about 3 days in a place, no matter how big the place is. So I'm always moving on. So I'm always like I go to a place, see what's around, move on to a different place, see what's around, move on to a different place. This means that all of my trips tend to be quite hectic and tend to be quite packed. However, when I'm on a trip, when I move from place to place, what I do is move as cheaply as possible, which when I was in West Africa was local buses. I think that's the epitome of slow travel. A local bus in West Africa. I am literally the only white person on the bus, and they go, "What on earth are you doing on this bus?" And I go, "It's a bus, isn't it?
It's going somewhere. I want to go somewhere.
It's going to where I want to go. What do you expect me to do?"
Even better.
That's what I do with slow travel. I don't spend a lot of time in each place because that would just bore me intensely. But when I move on as quote, slowly, unquote, as possible. I mean, one of the ultimate things of this was 2019, I hiked across Great Britain. So I spent more or less every night in a different place, but I was walking.
That's pretty slow.
That's very slow. But equally, I wasn't doing what a lot of slow travelers do, and that's spend time to explore a place, spend time to, truly get into underneath.
Embed a bit.
Yes. I was literally just going, "Oh, this is a nice place. Walk on. Oh, this is a nice place. Walk on."
I think you have a slow travel vibe with a faster paced itinerary. That's how I would describe your style. I have less restrictions because I'm self-employed.
Yes, living the dream.
Well, in some ways. No, I'm very fortunate, I think, to be self-employed. I love it. And it does mean, my work often happens in, intense chunks. Some of the work I do is lecturing, and so that happens during a semester time. Students do not go to university for very long each year, so that leaves a lot of time. And, I do often have 4 to 6 weeks available, which I could put aside. I don't always do it because it's also a matter of budget and then my son's soccer season and stuff. But I do try to basically go to a fairly small area for as long as I possibly can. When we came over to Manchester Way last year, a lot of people were very shocked that I didn't go to London. And I'm like, well, I wasn't going to London. I was going to Manchester. I went as far north as the wedding location in the Lake District, and then as far south and west as, the northern part of Wales. Otherwise, we were in that kind of same region. And that was absolutely, a big enough area for me for, I don't know how long we were away, 2.5 weeks, 3. Yeah, I would rather spend longer, and I think we stayed everywhere multiple nights, and I prefer not to spend only one night somewhere these days. But I wasn't always like that because I used to get kind of total FOMO and want to see everything. Yeah, now I kind of just would rather spend a longer time, and I do like to feel embedded and have a few mornings where I go to the same coffee shop and get to know people and people chat, and I don't know, I like that. And obviously with some flexible working arrangements, I mean, because sometimes I'll just work while I'm traveling. So then I need to be traveling fairly slowly because I need to fit in some work as well. All right, I usually choose the destination first and then choose the length depending on where I'm going, because I think that is probably closest to how I travel.
Yes.
Next question. How do you usually pack for a trip? I usually pack too much in a big suitcase or even several. I don't even own several suitcases, so this is not me. I take a backpack so I'm more mobile. It really depends on the trip, a suitcase or a backpack.
I don't own a suitcase.
I own a small carry-on suitcase that my father gave me many years ago, and I do sometimes take that if I'm going somewhere small, but usually I have like a rolly duffel bag. My son got a proper suitcase for his most recent trip to Europe, and it was quite interesting to see how suitcases work. I like to be able to, number one, I must be able to carry it all myself, whatever I'm taking. And number two, I just wear a lot of the same clothes, wash as I go if I need. I don't really care.
I don't carry a lot because I want to be able to carry it, and also I want to be able to store it on local buses and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I travel with only hand luggage.
Always?
Pretty much. I don't take generally anything heavy with me on holiday. And I take the view that if I'm away for more than about 5 days, I'm going to have to wash clothes anyway, so it doesn't matter how often I wash it. So I only need to take about 5 days worth of clothes.
Okay, so I'm going on, it really depends on the trip, a suitcase or a backpack. Would you like to read the next question?
What kind of food do you like to eat when away? Is it anything and everything local? Mostly local, but the occasional meal of another cuisine to mix it up if it's a long trip? Or international cuisine, a bit of everything?
What do you think my answer's going to be?
I don't know, actually. I know you like eating locally because you're always very fond of, local travel as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Miss Tam Tams or something.
Tim Tams. Uh-huh. Okay, well, I am the middle one, but only because, in Australia we eat like at home.
Yeah.
It's a different cuisine every night. We'll have, even home cooking. I'll cook Indian one night, I'll cook Mexican, I'll cook Italian. So we have a lot of variety, and I get bored easily with food if I have the same stuff. And so I'm not used to, in a lot of countries you go to, they will have sort of variants of the same kind of stuff is all of their food, or you have the same flavors. So I remember, a couple of weeks in Thailand, and I've got to have a pizza or something, I love, love, love Thai food, but it does get to the point where I can't have any more. I just need some variety. So that's why I'm picking the middle one.
My issue with this question, I travel a lot in the UK. And if I think about this, I know what UK local food is. So I'm thinking if someone's coming in from abroad and wants to eat local British food, A, why? And B, we can do better.
There might be better options.
We can do better than that. Eat and drink locally. What's eat and drink locally? I lived in Kirkby and Asheville for 15 years. Eat and drink locally is you go to the Wetherspoons, then you go to the Chinese takeaway, and then you go home and have a malt beer. And it's like, that's eating and drinking locally in Britain. Yeah. And that's not really what you mean when we travellers go, oh, we need to eat locally. We need to eat,
It's so true.
Also, on a slightly more serious point, you've got a situation where a lot of countries eating locally you can't because generally people eat at home. So eating locally would be technically home-cooked food that you're unlikely to have, particularly anywhere. I mean,
what you say about the UK is no different really in Australia. Like, what is Australian food? We don't really have Australian food. We just have the world's food.
You have another shrimp on the barbie. That's what you do. Throw another shrimp.
We don't have shrimp. We have only prawns, no shrimp. You can drink Australian, but it's hard to eat Australian.
Had VB bitter.
Oh, don't drink that. We've got much better.
I know you have.
All right. How do you normally spend your time when you're traveling, I suppose? I'm very active. I'm always swimming, trekking, walking, etc., and don't spend much time relaxing. Or I like visiting the key sites of a place, but then spend most of my time relaxing. I usually mix up each day between something active like a walking tour and something relaxing like chilling by the pool. None of the above.
No, I go to a place for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
That reason might only, potentially that reason might only be like, sort of, I will spend 5 minutes looking at a particular site that's resonantly famous. And then what else am I going to do in that town? I have no idea. I haven't planned that far ahead. What I will say, I like walking. So one of the things that I do is I walk around the city if it's big enough for like sort of, 7 or 8 hours and then forget to eat because I'm too busy walking around the city. So I've on some of my trips, I've actively gone on hikes either for a day or
Same.
a couple of times for, an overnight or a 2-day trek, 3-day trek, just because it's there and that's why I'm in the country. I'm a runner, but I don't do running when I'm traveling. What I do depends on where I am. I am very bad at switching off. So I'm very bad at having rest days, for instance. Like I don't see the point of rest days until my body goes, you need a rest day. I don't go on holiday to relax. I go on holiday to do stuff.
Yeah, same.
That said, in the evenings, when I'm traveling alone, I'll generally go to the pub, which is a form of relaxation.
Yeah, exactly. It is similar to chilling by the pool. It's chilling in the pub.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except the pub is more interesting.
Yeah, yes, arguably.
And you don't get sunburn.
It's true.
I mean, of the three answers, I'd probably choose the middle one simply because of the way I travel is I do a lot and I don't relax. But when I'm looking at what I'm doing, there's not necessarily a lot I'm doing in a particular place. So I end up doing a lot of nothing by default.
That nothing is like immersion and experiencing a place. Yeah. Just, it doesn't look like, I don't know, a busy tick the box tour. I have had very active holidays. Like we've done quite a few, multi-day but stay in a bed each night. I hasten to add hiking trips in the last few years. The middle one, I like visiting the key sites of a place. I'm not really necessarily into the key sites. I just wanted to see what I want to see, and sometimes that's random stuff. And I would probably say I'm closest to the bottom one. And then the something relaxing might be something quite different. It might be, going for a drink often I'll travel where there will be friends to visit. So then the something relaxing is catching up with friends, or I'm traveling with friends. And so, I'm going to that bottom one.
Pick one of your favorite things to do while you're on holiday. A long hike up somewhere for a view of an amazing sunset. Lie on a sunbed or in a hammock reading a really good book. Or go on a tour like wine tasting or to a food market and sample local delicacies.
Okay, well, I'm going to use the process of elimination. So lie on a sunbed or a hammock reading a really good book, no. Okay? I love reading a really good book, but I don't need to. That's not my favourite thing to do on holidays.
Or
I can do that at home. A long hike up somewhere for a view of an amazing sunset. I do love a good view, and I'm happy to do a hike. Go on a tour like wine tasting or to a food market and sample local delicacies. Like it just sounds only foodie. Like that's fine. And especially a food market. I mean, I'm happy to go wine tasting, but I guess only if I was in a wine tasting region would this be relevant. I'm going to go for a long hike up somewhere for a view of an amazing sunset, mostly for sentimental reasons, because more than 20 years ago, I was on a trip through the Balkans and I was meeting up with a Slovak friend in a little town in Croatia. We stayed in a funny little, she went there every summer. It was owned by a local Croatian woman. And my friend said, there's this other guy and he's going on this hike to this place where you can see the sunset. Will you come with me so it looks like I'm there accidentally, but actually I'm trying to meet this guy and get to know him better because I really like him. So I was like, yes, Tatiana, I will come with you. And it was an amazing sunset.
Did she get what she wanted?
Not really. So she got to chat to the guy, but then that was it. He went home the next day and they never saw each other again. So I know it was a bit sad, but I was a good wing woman. So I did my job and that's why I'm picking that one.
I am a hiker and I have been to places specifically to explore the countryside, but equally I've also been to places to explore local facets. And the reason why I go to a place is because there is something specifically about that place that intrigues me. And sometimes the only way of finding that out is to go on a tour or what have you. So I'm kind of torn, but I'm probably going to go with the first one.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with the third one. Ha, you tricked me.
Yeah. Walking is cheap and also kind of interesting. And I like walking and I like walking in new places. How important is Wi-Fi to you? Good God.
I know. What a funny question. It's a funny question, but then I think actually it does lead us to a few interesting points.
So the answers given are not at all important. This is why I'm going away. Important, I still need to be connected. Or I could happily have limited access, but would want to be cut off for most of the trip. When I went to Southeast Asia in 2012, which was probably the most important trip I've ever done in my life, I had 3 days offline. When I got back online in Siem Reap after being in Anlong Veng for 2 days, I had several messages from people, a couple of pen pals, and my mother wondering if I was dead.
Yes.
Because I hadn't contacted them for 3 days. Conversely, I have a small group of friends back in Cape Ashfield called the Unicorn Squad. They are completely nutters. They are brilliant. They are just wild. They're like me, but more sensible. I asked them once, if I went away and you didn't hear from me for a while, how long would it be before you started to worry?
Good question.
You know what they said?
Oh, no. Was it a bad answer? Like a long time?
It depends on your definition of bad answer. 2.5 months.
They wouldn't worry for 2.5 months.
They wouldn't worry for 2.5 months. This is a group of people that once had a WhatsApp group chat with me called Is Barefoot Backpacker in the Country? Because I have this habit, apparently, of I will be chatting to them on, say, a Thursday night, and I'll be, I'm in the pub in Cape Ashfield or whatever. And then on the Friday night, they'll send me a message and go, sorry, I'll get back to you when I'm back in the country. I'm currently in Cambodia. Apparently I do that quite a lot and they find it amusing. On the whole, it's probably safer if I don't have a Wi-Fi connection. I get frustrated when I don't have one.
Same.
But equally, I don't mind it so much because there's always things I can be doing. And if I can't update my progress on Instagram stories, then, so be it.
I really miss the pre-Wi-Fi days. Like, I really miss the way we travelled when there was no internet and certainly no mobile phones, because I loved just rocking up somewhere, maybe using the Lonely Planet or just asking someone and finding places. But it's not like that anymore. So it depends. Sometimes I do still need to be connected because I am working as well. So then that's super important. Or if I'm traveling not with my son, then it's super important to me to be connected because I really want to make sure that, he can get in touch with me and vice versa. However, I have also been very happy on days when I'm traveling, like especially when we've been on like hiking trips and we're out in the middle of nowhere and we've got no internet for the day or no mobile signal for the day. I'm very happy with that, and I'm happy just to catch up in the evening later and see what's going on. So, and I'm also easily distracted by stuff on my phone. So if I can't see anything, that's probably better, and it helps me just, enjoy where I am. So I'm going to pick the third one. I could happily have limited access, but I don't want to be cut off for most of the trip.
I hate to promote my own podcast again. A year or two ago, I did an episode where I looked at the Interrail trip I did in 2000. And what I did was I compared how that travel was then with how travel is now and how things have changed. And it's quite an interesting thing. I mean, I still use guidebooks now, but I use them more to guide my process rather than this is a
make
hotel.
Decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've never liked, the whole idea of, rocking up and booking a place by walking in and going, have you any room? I did it a bit in West Africa. Didn't like it, but I did it. But I'd rather not. So the idea that I can access things now really simply on my phone or have you while I'm traveling, even though I'm only booking it like 3 hours before I get there.
Yeah, it's pretty handy.
I remember when me and my friend Layla were traveling, we went from China to Latvia by train. But I remember it was a case of going into internet cafes with really slow internet. This was 2006.
Yeah.
Going into internet cafes with really slow internet connections and just hoping that websites work.
I must say the ability, like I remember, I probably romanticize it, but back in the day you'd arrive somewhere and sometimes you'd have to traipse around to 4 or 5 different places before you could find somewhere that A, you could, had rooms, or B, you wanted to stay. And in contrast, like on my most recent trip to Japan, we didn't know each day where we were going to stay, but eventually we would figure it out. And then on the train there, we would, use our phones and book somewhere. And therefore we would know that, we could then directly go to the place that had a room. So that is very, very handy. I agree.
That's exactly what I do when I travel. I plan things in the extent that I know that logistically I can get from A to B, and I know that it's possible to overnight somewhere, but I often don't book things until the day. There have been a number of times where I've woken up in the morning and not knowing which country I'll be in that evening.
That's quite a fun feeling. I like that. So our last question, I think also gives us some insight into our travelling styles. How do you usually feel after a trip? Content, but with a hint of sadness, it wasn't long enough. Rejuvenated and ready for reality, like I need to quit my life back home and start a surf shop somewhere.
I am on record as saying that I go back to work for a rest cure.
Mm-hmm.
Because my travels are so often intense and busy and moving around a lot that it makes a change to actually go back to a structured environment where I can actually sleep properly. Most people go on holiday to relax.
I don't go on holiday to relax.
I know people that do, but I know people that, for instance, they will go to Disney World every year. And the reason they go to Disney World every year is because it's safe, it's comfortable, and it means they don't have to worry or think about things, which is what they want for a holiday.
100%. Here, there's an enormous proportion of the Perth population who go to Bali every year for the same reason. How I usually feel after a trip is definitely not rejuvenated because same reason, like I'm not going on holiday to relax, and not like I need to quit my life back home. I like my life back home. So actually, I think the first one, but with some amendments. So content, but with a hint of sadness, it wasn't long enough. Not because I don't travel for a long time, but because it's never long enough, really. Because I would always be happy to spend longer, but there's some restriction on why I can't. So yeah, but content, definitely content. I've got all these wonderful memories to look back on.
I have had some holidays where they have ended at the right time.
Actually, that's true. Sometimes you're ready to go home.
Yeah. I do often come back and go, that was really fun. I wish I could do it more.
Maybe, yeah, not necessarily that it wasn't long enough, but you'd like to repeat. Yeah, same. Okay, so I'm picking that one, and that means my result is, yes, I am a 50% vacationer, 50% traveller, which really just means that this survey is crazy, but at least we got to talk about good stuff.
I have come out as a traveller. Travelling for you is all about seeing the world and experiencing everything it has to offer, even if that means staying in a hut in the middle of a jungle. You like to go away for many weeks so you can really explore the country as best as you can, and eating local food and being active is super important to you.
I want your result. That's so funny. We didn't have many difference, but it was enough.
It was enough, yes. Which means probably means you're actually quite close to the boundary.
Yeah, let's say that.
Not that the boundary is in any way, of course, arbitrary in the first place.
No, we just wanted a structure for our conversation, and it worked.
Are you a tourist or a traveller? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes, I don't want to have that debate because yes is the answer, exactly. As I said in the intro, many ways to be a thoughtful traveller or vacationer or trip taker, holiday maker, tourist, whatever you want to call us. I hope you enjoyed that conversation, even a tenth as much as I did. It was great fun to have a proper good chat with the Barefoot Backpacker, so thank you so much. Some links to look up more of their work. You can go to the Barefoot Backpacker blog at barefoot-backpacker.com. Many years of very interesting posts there, especially if you're curious about some lesser known destinations, some really good stuff there. The podcast is the Travel Tales from Beyond the Brochure. I'll leave a link in the show notes, but also just look up Travel Tales from Beyond the Brochure anywhere you get your podcast, or I guess where you are listening to this one. I'll also leave a link in the show notes to the Buzzfeed quiz we use, just in case you want to try it out for yourself. Of course, don't forget to join either the Facebook group or the LinkedIn group for Thoughtful Travellers, or why not both? We talk about different things. Search for Thoughtful Travellers in either of those platforms and you'll find us. We've also got the Thoughtful Travellers Book Club starting up again. That takes place mostly in the moment in the Facebook group, but I'll also be talking about it on Substack. And you can find the Thoughtful Travellers Substack at thoughtfultravel.substack.com. Other articles and interesting writing, hopefully, I think, and other bits and pieces there as well. Anyway, massive thanks to the Barefoot Backpacker for your enduring friendship and for this really fun chat. If you want to see all these links and more, the show notes are at notaballerina.com/345. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.